What is going on, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
Today we're going to be doing a part two, basically, of the video series of albums that you guys hate, but I love. And the first one went over so well, I thought, hey, I got plenty more to choose from, so let us do a second video. So this one here is going to be a little bit more on the heavier side as far as bands go, but not necessarily the albums themselves being heavier, but bands that are known for a little bit more on the heavier side of metal.
Hi, this is David Reese, and you're watching the Crash Course Metal Show.
Let's go to our first band here, and this is not going to be the only band from Germany, actually. But first and foremost, let us go to Accept, Eat the Heat from 1989. Now, this one here does not have Udo. He obviously left Accept before this album, and then he went on to do his solo stuff like Udo. And when Udo ended up coming back in 1993 to do Objection Overruled, they did redo the single off of this album, Generation Clash, which is a great song, but I prefer David Reese. Now, yes, David Reese did come in to replace Udo, and definitely I like it. Now, obviously, Udo is the man. He is the voice of Accept. I don't know, not many people are gonna disagree with that, I would say. But I do like what they did here with Eat the Heat. I like David's vocals coming in here. It brings it a little bit more. I don't think power is the right word, but just a little bit more clarity. Not so like drinking broken glass, eating broken glass, and washing it down with some fire and bourbon. That kind of deal. But I think David Reese did a commendable job. He did. If you see any live footage from this short tour, he does the Udo stuff very justice. It sounds really good, and I was quite impressed when I saw that. And if you guys want to hear how David ended up getting into Accept, like the behind the scenes story, click this link right here. We had David Reese on, and we interviewed him last year, and we talked a little bit about Accept and stuff like that. So definitely check it out. It's certainly worth hearing the story if you're a fan of Accept, or David Reese in general. So yes, we got the lead off track here, XTC. Really cool opening track. I dig it. One of my favorites off of this album. Generation Clash is the next song, which is the single. And I like this song a lot. One of my favorites off the album, but to have it as a lead off single, I don't know. I don't know if I would have done that, especially without having a true like Wolf solo in there. There's not really much of a solo here in this song, Generation Clash. But I will say, though, there are solos on this album, but I don't know if they're just kind of hidden or Wolf is kind of just taking like a back seat to that or like what, or just not really. They're not as prevalent as like they are on previous albums, on earlier albums from Accept. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if that's just production, just kind of like the direction they were going here, but it's 1989. Guitar solos are the thing. Like, I don't know what the issue is with that, but especially with the single, you got to have a solo in there, man. Like, you got to have this is Accept. We got to have solos in here, and it kind of blows my mind. But nonetheless, great 6-minute song, Generation Clash. Yeah, then you got other songs on here like track number 4, Love Sensation. Good song there. I like it. Turn the Wheel, Hellhammer. Pretty good, heavy song. Yeah, I do like the track number 9, though. This is almost 9 minutes long. It is called Mistreater. It's like an epic ballad. Like, that's like something that I don't really think of too much. Like, oh, what are some epic ballads? Like real long ballads. And man, this is 9 minutes long, almost just about. And it's awesome. Like, because even when we talked about this album, me and Chris Elliott from 86 Bullets, it's like he brought that to my attention. I was like, that is actually a really good song that gets overlooked. It could easily be like there's some good guitar work in that song as well. And that like some solos in there and stuff, but it's just way too long, obviously, to be a single. So it just sucks that not more people know about Mistreated. Track number 10, Stand for What You Are. Just a cool, fun, upbeat song, like more of along the lines of 1989 mainstream metal, if you will. But you got final track here, track number 12, D Train. It's cool. Generally speaking, you got 12 tracks. You could take 2 of these off and you would have a much stronger album and not so long. I do feel like that is one of the downfalls of this album, that if someone would say, oh, I don't like this album, I would agree with you in that part of it just being way too long. And just take 2 songs off of that, I think you'd be all right. But David Reese does an excellent job, especially him once he leaves Accept or gets kicked out of Accept. He goes and does Bangalore Choir. Oh, God, that album from 1992 on Target, absolutely great. Awesome stuff. Really underrated album there, because rightfully it does need to be talked about. Eat the Heat does. And it just gets overlooked because it's not Udo. And maybe the production throws some people off. It's a little too clean, maybe. I don't know.
You can tell me I'm a doctor.
No, I mean, I'm just not sure.
Or can't you take a guess?
Well, not for another 2 hours.
You can't take a guess for another 2 hours?
What the true issue is, other than maybe people just don't want to hear about it because it's not Udo. I feel like it might get a little bit more love now in recent years than it obviously did when it came out, because you got Mark now on vocals for Accept, and he does an excellent job as well. But I think that might kind of like help, with some fans as far as like, okay, yeah, maybe, Udo is Accept isn't like sticking out like a sore thumb anymore as far as vocals go, not having Udo. That's the only thing I can think of, maybe. But let me know in the comments what you guys don't like about Eat the Heat. It's just awesome. So check that out, guys. Yeah, if you guys want 2 tracks to check out, XTC, Generation Clash, and let's do Mistreated if you guys like ballads. It's an epic ballad, a heavier ballad. So check that out. All right, so for our second pick here, we are going to 1996, and that is Danzig 5, basically, Blackacidevil. Now, this album here was on Hollywood Records, which is like an offshoot of Disney. Like, can you imagine Danzig? Mr. Prince of Darkness, like very satanic, sinister guy, Misfits on a Disney record label. Like that's just strange to me. But nonetheless, everyone is familiar with Glenn Danzig from the Misfits, and obviously the first 4 classic albums from Danzig, all the way starting from 1988, Danzig 1, and then going up to Danzig 4 to 1994. And then here we are in 1996 with Danzig 5, and the single off of here is Sacrifice. That is one of the singles anyway, and it did get a music video, but I think what people don't like about this, it's so jarringly different, I think, to even Danzig 4. It's so different, like so much effects on Danzig's voice. It's so hard to kind of hear him and understand him. It's very industrial, to be quite frank, because when you think of Danzig, you think of like blues metal, you think of just hard, just your traditional metal too, kind of doomy in spots. And it's just when you go to Danzig 5 here, 1996, like you're in that industrial era, because you got alternatives starting to, or grunge starting to not be so popular anymore, starting to make its way out, and now industrial death, even like new metal is starting to come in here very shortly. So it's just kind of jarring for people, but you still have great tracks. Now, yes, there aren't no real like guitar solos. If you're expecting anything off of the first 4 albums of the Danzig output, you're not going to get it here. You're just not.
What?
The closest song I would say would be Sacrifice or Ashes. And Ashes is just basically Danzig singing normal, like with not much effects on his voice. And it's just kind of like a ballad, real slow, not much going on. But it's a great song nonetheless. Very emotional style. I guess Sacrifice might be the closest thing. I don't know what else I would give to somebody and be like, oh yeah, if you like Danzig 4 or 2 or whatever, you'll like this song. No, this is kind of an acquired taste here, Blackacidevil, but nonetheless, so you still have 10 tracks, That's in the sweet spot of being 10 tracks long. So it's not too long by any means. But like I said, if you're not an acquired taste, like Danzig is one of my favorite artists, top 3 artists easy of all time. So like even me, I had to kind of work with this for like a year or two to really appreciate the whole album. Because like, yeah, when I first bought it when I was a teenager and stuff, like obviously I had the first 4 albums and I loved them. And then I'm like, okay, let's check out 5 here. Let's get everything Danzig. And this, I liked a few songs off of it, like Ashes, Sacrifice, Hint of Her Blood, See All You Were, like stuff like that. But like the other half of the album, I was like, oh god, I can't take this sound, this just noise kind of. It is kind of noise when you're not ready for it or expecting it or just don't like it in general, that sound. But I think the other crime here is on this album, Danzig still had his voice intact, still sounded really good. And this is the last album with a strong classic Danzig voice, but we just cannot hear it because of all the effects that are just smothered on the tracks and just in the production, just on his voice in general. And it's just a shame because you still hear it. It still sounds great on the last track, Ashes. Like I said, it's like a ballady. It's just him, very, very little effect on his voice. And it's just like, God, like we could have had a whole album of this style. And because he even does, if anyone knows the as you can see behind me here, right there, the Lost Tracks of Dancing, he does the couple songs here, Come to Silver and Hand of Doom, I believe. He does those 2 songs on that. And it's just like stripped down. It has none of the effects or the production of this album here. And it's recorded around the same time. And it's just like, they sound so much better than his voice wise. They sound so much better. It sounds so much more like Danzig than this does. But nonetheless, though, I mean, it is an acquired taste. You are going to have to listen to it a few times, even for the biggest Danzig fan. You're going to have to listen to it a couple times to really appreciate it. Like I said, it took me a year or 2 to really appreciate the whole thing. But I like it. I like it a lot. I even say that I love it because, yes, this was the one that I would say I wouldn't love from Danzig. You guys want to check out some songs? I think Sacrifice, it does have a little bit of like a dance feel, like a club feel. A lot of people make that comparison. I totally get that, but it's still a good song though. The title track's pretty cool. See All You Were. Serpentina is kind of weird, but I mean, you're gonna get a lot of weird here on this album. It's just a very, atmospheric, just thick layers of shit all over his voice, production, and just it's a shame, but it does work. I think it's okay as time goes on. I think it works better than it did obviously when it came out. But I think it's just a potential that we had here with a 5th album and just changing from Chuck, John, and Erie, the original bandmates from the first 4 albums. It's just like it's just too much of a shock all at once going on, and it's just it's one you have to sit with, guys. This isn't not an easy sell for you guys, especially for Danzig fans. It's not an easy sell, but nonetheless, if you guys want to feel adventurous and like shock and awe, check this album out. Blackacidevil from Danzig, 1996. Oh yes, and even if you want the ballad, like more of a normal Danzig song that you would expect a couple albums prior, check out Ashes. That is the standout track if you don't want nothing heavy and hard and like all that, shit going on, all that production and layering going on his voice and the music. All right, we are going back here to Germany, and we are going to be talking about a little band called Helloween and their album from 1993, Chameleon. So this is the 5th album from Helloween, and yes, the power metal greats, the OGs. You could even argue that they created the sub genre of power metal, and it's just a lot of people talk shit on this album, and I get why. I get it, but I absolutely love it. This is another one that, when I first bought it, because I was a big fan of Helloween back in high school, around the same time of Danzig. And, back in 2006 and stuff, I bought everything Helloween. I loved Andy era and I loved Michael Kiske here. And I liked a few songs off this, like When the Sinner. I like that song. I would listen to that a lot. But generally speaking, this album was a big miss for me as well. But, it's over time, man. I just appreciate the palette of music, the variety here that Helloween gives us. They're great musicians. They show that here on these songs, and they give you a little bit of like rockabilly on one song. They give you some like horns on a couple others. They give you some jazz stuff. Like it's not strictly power metal. There are a couple songs that are like power metal, like Giants, which is a really good song. Like that's the closest that I would say to anything like Keeper of the Seven Keys. But I think you kind of like, if anyone's familiar with the album before this, Pink Bubbles Go Ape. Now that's another album that could have easily been on this list, but I don't like that album as much as I do Chameleon here. It's still a good album, but it's not. I prefer Chameleon anytime over Pink Bubbles Go Ape. But on the bonus tracks of Pink Bubbles Go Ape, there's like some tracks that you can kind of really tell that they're really trying to like branch out and like just try some different things. Then there's like this one instrumental track. It's like really slow, jazzy, hint of bluesy. Like it's really good, really somber and peaceful. Like it's really good stuff. But anyway, but you can kind of see though from listening to that, like, oh, okay, we're gonna see a little bit of this coming on Chameleon. So 1993. Obviously, as we know, metal as a whole is just changing. Hair metal is on the way out, or is out. Thrash metal is out. Power metal is, still there. It's still there, but in America, it's just not, what you want it to be. But overseas, though, it's still doing decent. And it's just, Helloween was just kind of tired of doing the power metal thing. At least it seemed like Michael Kiske was, and they were just having a lot of different musical influences at the time, and you can hear it. And Chameleon really shows that too, because like some of the band wanted to do this, some of the other band wanted to do this. It's like you get all that, and I think it's why it's called Chameleon too, because you get all kinds of different shit, and I think it actually works, guys. It is a 70-minute long song or a 70-minute long album. Not song. That would be crazy as hell if it was one song for 70 minutes. But it's an album that's 71 minutes long. Yes, you can say it's too long, but I don't necessarily have an issue. I think there's only one song that I do not have on this album. And I think it is Step Out of Hell. That might be the one song I don't have on the iPod. But I can listen to it. When I'm listening to this album, I have no issue with listening to it for 70 minutes. I don't get bored with it really. I don't hate it. I appreciate it for what it is. Like as I get older, your your music palette expands and you start to like even more things, get a little bit more diversity going, and I think that really is a testament to me liking this album, because as I grew older, I'm like, oh yeah, I do like that. I like that sound. I like this. I like what they're trying to do here, they're just great musicians though at the end of the day, Helloween. And I think just in that alone gives a lot of these songs a pass, because it's still great stuff. It's still a really good sounding music. It's memorable music. So track number one, First Time, upbeat, fast paced one. Decent, not one I would be like, hey, you gotta go check that out, but it's good. I mean, it's the feel of what you're gonna get the rest of the album. But track number two, When the Sinner, is a single, really good. I like the horns at the end. I like horns in metal. I know that might be kind of not a cool thing.
I don't give a fuck.
But in hair metal, I think it works. In power metal, it can work. Or just in metal in general, I think horns can work. Now, not all the time, maybe, but in spots and when it's due. So this is actually another thing too. There was 4 singles off of this. I only knew of When the Sinner as like an actual single, and I think that might be actually the only music video but those singles had to be released like over in Europe or Germany or something because I would guarantee you that all four of those were not released in America. Because the second single was "I Don't Want to Cry No More." Third, "Windmill," which is like a somewhat of a ballad, if you will. And then "Step Out of Hell" was the fourth one, and not necessarily the singles that I would put out either. I would say, other than "Windmill," like okay, those three singles, "I Don't Want to Cry," "Windmill," and "Step Out of Hell," are probably some of the weaker songs on the album, in my opinion. But I do really enjoy "Windmill," but I can understand why someone would say that that's a weaker song. But I can dig it. It's more of like an acoustic type deal, but I like it. But some of the songs, though, that I do want to point out that are really good are Giants, like I mentioned. And then you got track number 7, "Revolution Now." Really cool, a little progressive in some spots. Really changes in the chorus from the rest of the song. I like that a lot. Music is cool. I like that. I like Michael's delivery on that song. And the last track, "Longing." It's just kind of like another Windmill type deal, but it's more somber and very somewhat not depressive, but kind of like talking to yourself and like really asking yourself some serious questions. And I think it works as a final track. I like it a lot. Just sets the mood to really want to be like, oh yeah, let's try this again here. Let's listen to this again. But nonetheless, go guys. 1993, obviously, Michael Kiske did end up leaving after this album and did not come back until the glorious self-titled album of 2021, Helloween. And that's just a great album though too. And props to Andy for keeping on Helloween, being the voice of Helloween. And I really I think that's awesome that all three of the original original singers are together on the same album on the same songs. Like, it's just badass. I think a lot of other bands can really take note and should do that. Yeah, that's just awesome for the fans. And that's like kind of like a dream come true, because I remember in high school, I'm like, damn, are they ever gonna get back together? Like originals, and I'm like, but they ended up doing it, and that's just so awesome. That even though it was like 15 years later, but still, it's just awesome to see, and it was just as good as I imagined it would be as far as the album goes and stuff. But nonetheless, guys, though, of the original run of Helloween or of the Michael Kiske era, check out Chameleon. It is different. Don't get me wrong. It is different, guys. But if you like some, variety in your stuff, in your metal, definitely check it out. I mean, if you're expecting Keeper of the Seven Keys, that's just not going to be it, and you're going to be let down. But if you're coming into it with an open mind, as you should with a lot of these albums, and every album, really, I don't think you're going to be, you'll find stuff on here that you'll like, and you'll take off and put on your iPod on your playlist or something. You'll enjoy it. So let's do a quick little recap here. We got Accepts, Eat the Heat. Very, very good stuff from 1989. Shout out to David Reese and all of his solo work and stuff as well. Very good, underrated musician. Then we got 1996, Blackacidevil from Danzig. And then we got here Helloween, finishing off Germany, the trip of Germany here. And that is 1993's Chameleon. Very good stuff. Very good, very different though. But guys, let me know in the comments what you guys think of these three albums.
Talk to me.
And then also let me know what some albums that, it seems like a lot of people hate, but you actually like. So quite interesting what you guys have to say. And let me know in the comments, guys. But until next time, stay out of that collateral damage. And if you guys enjoyed this, check out part 1 right here.
Yeah, I wrote that. It's called I Want to Rock Your Body. And then in parentheses it says to the break of dawn.